You'll see I'm on the back of an envelope quite literally because we are joyously coming to the last sort of 2 months of our year as the first ever UK City of Culture. And with all of the complexities that that brings. I said to Margaret earlier that I'm actually only 25, so beware, this is what City of Culture projects do to you. So take a good look at Carl now. He may look very different in another year or so's time. But seriously, these projects are not for the faint-hearted, and I think I'm delighted that this is firmly on the agenda today as Derry, Londonderry comes close to the end of its year with this incredible kind of special accolade, and Limerick goes into the beginnings of its year as Irish City of Culture. And of course the competition for the next round of the UK City of Culture is live and active at the minute, and the 4 shortlisted cities there are Hull, Leicester, Dundee and Swansea. So indeed Wales, Scotland and England all represented in the shortlist for next year, or for 2017, because that particular competition comes round every 4 years. So it's a very, very relevant subject, and I guess I wanted to take my few minutes this morning or this afternoon just to give you a sense of when you have this opportunity, and if you handle it in the right way, it can be genuinely transformative. I would argue that by the end of 2013, Derry, Londonderry will never be the same again. It is a city that has absolutely risen to the challenge of ownership and participation and absolute immersion in the cultural experience that has been the last year. It has not been without its challenges. It has been difficult. We're talking about a city that is a British city, that is an Irish city, that is on the periphery of the island, which is on the periphery of Europe. So it has been against a very kind of complex context that we embarked on this challenge to put together a year-long programme of cultural activity. And I suppose, just as Carl talks about those expectations, I mean, we arrived into an enormous expectation of what a cultural programme and a cultural year would do. It was going to transform the place, it was going to bring visitors, it was going to change the perceptions from a kind of negative city with a history of conflict and difficulties into a city that was a cultural hub in Europe. The expectations were absolutely enormous. And managing those expectations and trying to deliver something that is both real and meaningful for the outsider coming into the city, but more importantly, I would argue, to the people who are the residents and of and from the place, is not an easy thing to try to balance. We set out with 2 kind of core themes, one being joyous celebration, which really was about that sense of lifting a city with a troubled past into a much more joyous and positive experience. The second was also about purposeful inquiry, and that theme was about not forgetting the past and not trying to gloss over it or not trying to make our year just a big kind of marketing hype with no real substance behind it. So balancing those 2 themes in our programming was another challenge. So the other aspect of it was to try to do things that were of scale and magnitude and that would make people want to come and travel to and visit the city, whilst at the same time also delivering a programme that would not be about events, but would be about long-term, serious, educational and community-based initiatives that the people of the city themselves would end the year thinking that and feeling that they had experienced something that was genuinely transformative for them and that had legacy and legs that would run way beyond 2013. People ask now and are increasingly asking about the benefits, and I know that's part of the agenda here this morning. And of course, at the end of the year, we'll be able to describe in economic terms, and there's all kinds of metrics for hotel occupancy and visitor numbers, and we can tell you already that from May right through until now, the hotel occupancy figures in the city have broken all records. They've never been higher. And the anticipation already with the programme for the rest of the year is that that will continue right through to December. We can tell you already that we have had visitors from over 75 different nationalities. We have metrics for all of these things. We'll be able to tell you the number of new businesses that opened in the city. So the economics, I guess, for me, is probably the easy part. The actual transformation that has gone on in people's hearts and minds, the confidence that you will experience if you go to Derry, Londonderry today as opposed to 2 years ago, is tangible. The city looks different, it feels different, the way people in the city talk is different, the way they talk about their place, their sense of self, the sense of confidence, and not only that, but the sense of ambition and reluctance to take second best moving forward is very strong and very clear whenever you are living and working there. So I think one of the biggest legacies out of the year is going to be that sense of a city that has taken hold of itself, citizens who have experienced things that are world class and have experienced a sense of their own position in the world. And I know this was talked about in the sporting sort of elements earlier. I think all of that is going to be incredibly powerful. And without over-egging it, I think the other aspect of this year, the absolute cultural immersion and the cultural participation of all of the citizens of the city, has made Derry a very different place to be this year than Belfast. And I don't think even our Belfast colleagues would disagree with that. Somehow we managed to get through marching seasons and difficulties over flags and emblems and all of those kind of difficult issues in a way that the city has never really experienced before. So there's a learning there. There is something that we really need to evaluate and assess at the end of this year to really understand what was that about this particular year that gave people a sense of inclusion, participation and creativity through culture. That has led to a very, very peaceful, joyous and outward-looking year for Derry. I'll give you 2 examples of the cultural programme. And if you haven't been there, my other plea this morning is to please come up before the end of the year. We just opened the Turner Prize the other night. It's the first time it's ever been outside of England. And we had 1,000 people there and a city that is now talking about contemporary visual art. For good or for bad, it's a different conversation to be held in Derry than some of the ones we've heard more recently. So two of the projects I'll talk about is one is called The Return of Columkill, and that was where we took the kind of legendary story of Columba, the patron saint of the city. We put Frank Cottrell Boyce, who is the writer who had written the opening ceremony of the Olympics, together with Walk the Plank, a company who do large-scale outdoor productions. And then we did an open call for 1,000 local people to actually play the parts of telling that story. And over 3 magical days in June, the Saints' Day on the 9th of June, we played out this public spectacle of the story of Columkill, complete with the Loch Ness Monster coming up the foil to do battle with Columba on the new Peace Bridge. And it was absolutely magical. And that sense of bringing the international, the kind of cultural expertise of a Frank Cottrell Boyce with local people to actually tell the story themselves really worked. We had 170 journalists over those 3 days in the city, and it just told such a different story about the place. The other one is the Turner Prize. I mean, people think it's great to have these kind of big glossy things floating in like a spaceship and landing in a place. The key things for me about the Turner Prize coming is one, that it's on the site of a former British military barracks, Ebrington. So what had been, I suppose, a symbol of kind of a negative aspect of the past has been transformed into this world-class gallery space and is now hosting the biggest thing in contemporary visual art. But alongside of that, another exhibition opened the other evening called No Jury, No Prize. And 300 local artists entered their own work to be shown in another gallery at the same time as the Turner Prize is happening. In another gallery, we have Willie Doherty, twice nominated for the Turner Prize, who's from the city himself, the first ever major retrospective of his work. So it isn't about these big shiny prizes floating into a city and transforming the place. It's about how you capitalise on that to bring the creativity of the place itself to the fore and to exhibit and display that. So I could talk on forever, as you can tell, but I wanted to leave you with a kind of provocation or a proposition. When I listened to the sporting people this morning, I think that if it's the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games, at the end of them, whichever place has hosted it, there's a major handover. There's a time frame where the learning is passed on, and there's a brand associated with those events that gives a stamp of quality and approval. We've just done the most incredible City of Culture year in Derry, Londonderry. Limerick is about to host the first Irish City of Culture. We've had 30 years of the European Capital of Culture. Where is the handover? Where is the learning? When it comes to the arts and the cultural sector, we just haven't got it right. We are missing a trick every time. We're repeating the same mistakes. So my proposition today is that we start to get that right and put the same value on arts and cultural experience as we do on the sporting. Thank you.